Capitalism is misunderstood, and that's primarily due to the misrepresentation of capitalism and free markets in schools, universities, institutions, and most of all, the media. TV shows, movies, music, they're always blaming capitalism when the system that we have is not and has not been a free market capitalist system for well over a century. If you're like me and millions of others, you spent New Year's Eve tuned into the Stranger Things series finale. Now, throughout the seasons, Stranger Things has taken plenty of shots at capitalism and many traditional American values. This is not shocking because almost all modern media created has an anti capitalist overtone, but it still frustrates me nonetheless. The part I wanted to talk about, and don't worry, there's no spoilers, but there's a scene where Jonathan Byers is talking about an anti capitalist horror movie that involves a monster consuming people. And the monster is supposed to be a representation of capitalism because it's insatiable and continuously consuming. And what's happening here is consumerism is being conflated with capitalism. So what's the difference? Consumerism is a system strictly based on excessive consumption of goods and services. And I agree that consumerism is not a good or sustainable system, but consumerism is not capitalism. Capitalism is a system based on individuals engaging in voluntary economic interactions for their own profit or benefit. You have private ownership of goods, and the goods are exchanged by mutually beneficial agreements. And it's voluntary, so the actors are free to engage and participate in transactions. That's what capitalism is. And capitalism is different from consumerism because it promotes savings, investment, and production. Production, not consumption. The wealth is in the production of the goods and services. Consumerism is strictly demand-based. It believes economic growth can be driven by consumer demand of goods and services. Well, if demand is all you need for economic growth, there would be no poverty because demand is unlimited. It's the resources that are limited, and real free market capitalism makes sure these resources are used as efficiently as possible. But it's easy to understand how people can get confused when the people in our government and media are actually fascist and socialist. Here's a clip of Trump's Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, and it's guys like this that give capitalism a bad rep.
But we consume $20 trillion a year. We are the buyer of everybody's stuff. We buy everybody's stuff. So who's more important, the people who sell stuff or the people who buy stuff? So we are the buyer of everybody's commodities, products, goods and services. Everything comes from us.
I really can't stand that guy. He gives me just the total used car salesman sleazy vibe, but he is way off. Okay. He says, who's more important, the people who sell stuff or the people who buy stuff? You know, it's whoever is selling stuff because the stuff is the wealth, the commodities, the products, the goods and services. That's the wealth. You see, it's the U.S. that has benefited at the expense of the producer nations because we get all the stuff. They make all the stuff, and then we give them all of our inflated paper. The way you create economic growth is not by consuming, it's by producing. Wealth is the goods and services produced. You see, it's a misconception to think that money is wealth. Money is not wealth. It is a measurement of wealth. The money is just a representation of how much goods and services you can acquire. That's why as the dollar loses purchasing power, the amount of dollars gets you less goods and services. If money was wealth, then all the billionaires in Zimbabwe would be doing well instead of living in poverty.